Afternoon. Diane Riley here to read to you again. Last time I read a book about Pinky and Rex, and today I'm reading another book about Pinky and Rex, and I'll just give you a little bit of background first. It's written by James Howe, and he tells us, pink isn't my favorite color, but in other ways I was very much like Pinky when I was his age. I liked stuffed animals. I was good at everything in school but sports. And for a time, my best friend was a girl named Bobby. Bobby was a lot like Rex. Writing the Pinky and Rex series gives me a chance to remember what it was like when I was 7. It also gives me a chance to say, it's okay to be different. And it's okay for boys and girls to be friends, even best friends. Now, this is just a little about this story. Pinky's favorite color is pink, and his best friend, Rex, is a girl. Kevin, the 3rd grade bully, says that makes Pinky a sissy. Deep down, Pinky thinks Kevin is wrong, but he's still worried. Does Pinky have to give up his favorite things? And worse, does he have to give up his best friend? So the title of the story is Pinky and Rex and the Bully. And we've all known bullies in our lives, and it's never fun. Chapter 1, Sissy. You're a sissy, Pinky, the boy shouted. Get up and fight. Pinky lay on the sidewalk where the 3rd grader had knocked him off his bike. His cheeks were fever hot. Pinky is a girl, Pinky is a girl, the older boy chanted. I'm not, Pinky said. The boy kicked at Pinky. Get up, sissy, or I'll tell everybody in school tomorrow that you're a girl. Anyway, nobody but a girl would ride a pink bike or have a name like Pinky. Pinky's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. Why couldn't Kevin just go away? Suddenly, he heard a door open and someone running in his direction. Stop that! You leave him alone, a voice called out. Pinky recognized it as Mrs. Morgan's. Now his cheeks really burned. It was embarrassing enough to be bullied, but to be saved by an old woman made it even worse. It's okay, Mrs. Morgan, Pinky said, scrambling to his feet. I just fell off my bike. I was trying to help him, Kevin lied. He pretended to pat Pinky on the shoulder, but pinched him hard instead. I know what you did, Mrs. Morgan said, pushing Kevin's hand away. I saw the whole thing. Now you get out of here before I call your parents. Kevin snickered, jumped on his bike, and rode off. When he reached the end of the block, he turned back and shouted, Sissy! Mrs. Morgan didn't seem to notice. I just made lemonade, she said. Would you like some? Pinky would have liked to have run across the street to his own house, bury his head in his pillow, and sleep until tomorrow. But seeing as how Mrs. Morgan had just saved his life, he couldn't say no. Okay, he mumbled. Good, said Mrs. Morgan. We'll sit out on the porch and you'll tell me what this was all about. Pinky groaned. Chapter 2, Cookies and Lemonade. That makes everything better. Mrs. Morgan gave Pinky cookies with his lemonade. You know, I hadn't baked cookies for years until you and your father made some for me, she told him. I'd forgotten how much better they are than the store-bought kind. Yes, ma'am, Pinky said. They looked like good cookies, but he had no interest in eating them. Mrs. Morgan nodded toward a large bush blooming in her backyard. Did you ever see such an explosion of pink? She asked. Why, that's your favorite color, isn't it? Pinky blushed. His favorite color was what had gotten him into trouble with the bully. Yes, ma'am, he answered. And that's how you got your nickname. You know, I don't remember your real name. I've been living across the street from you since you were born, and all I think to call you is Pinky. William, Pinky muttered. William, Mrs. Morgan echoed. That's right. She took a sip of her lemonade and stared for a long time at the flowering bush. I was just thinking, Mrs. Morgan said, almost as if Pinky weren't there, that I should paint that bush. Don't you like the color of it? Pinky asked. Mrs. Morgan burst into laughter. No, I mean I should paint a picture of it. I used to paint pictures a long time ago. Before she could go on, someone shouted, Pinky! It was Rex, waving from her driveway next door. Join us for cookies and lemonade, Mrs. Morgan called out. Rex came running. Pinky wished his friend hadn't seen him there. He didn't want her to find out about Kevin pushing him off his bike. Luckily, the subject didn't come up. Rex was full of news about her baby brother Matthew. She talked and never noticed that Pinky wasn't eating his cookies, nor that Mrs. Morgan was lost in thoughts of her own. Chapter 3, Recess. At recess the next day, Kevin's foot stopped the soccer ball Pinky was chasing. Pinky grabbed for it, but Kevin grabbed it first. How come you're always playing with girls? Kevin asked, wrapping his arms around the ball. Pinky glanced over his shoulder at Rex. She's my friend, Pinky said. Kevin laughed, which brought two other boys to his side. This little squirt plays with girls, he told the new arrivals. That's because he's a girl too. Know what his name is? The boys looked as if they weren't sure whether to laugh or to act tough. They watched Kevin for a sign. Kevin pursed his lips together. Pinky, he said in a mocking way. He started to laugh. The other boys' faces relaxed as they started laughing too. Just then, Pinky's friend Anthony came over. Give him back his ball, Anthony said. Oh, crooned one of the boys. Second graders. I'm so scared. Yeah, well, being in third grade doesn't make you anybody, Anthony said, punching the ball hard and knocking it out of Kevin's arms. Kevin went for it, but Anthony was faster. Come on, Pinky, Anthony said. Let's go. Kevin started after them, then changed his mind. Hey, kid, watch out who you play with, he shouted. You might turn into a girl, too. Anthony scowled. What's he talking about? He asked Pinky. Pinky shrugged. Beats me, he said. But inside, he wondered if Kevin was right. Maybe he was a girl. Chapter 4, Billy. That night after dinner, Pinky was helping his father clean up. "Is it bad that I like pink?" he asked. "Of course not," his father said. "Pink has always been your favorite color." "Yeah, but now that I'm 7, maybe I should like a different color." "What does being 7 have to do with it?" Pinky put down his dish towel and slumped into a chair. Finally, he said, "Maybe you shouldn't call me Pinky anymore." "When you were little, we called you Billy," his father said. Pinky thought for a long time. Then he said, "From now on, I'm Billy." Later in his room, Pinky looked at all his stuffed animals. Every one of them had pink on it somewhere. He could just imagine what Kevin would say about them. He picked up his favorite, Pretzel the pig. "Hi, Pretzel," he said. "I'm Billy now." The name felt funny in his mouth. "I guess I have to make some other changes too. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, you'll always be my friend." "I heard you and Daddy talking before." Pinky turned as his little sister Amanda came into his room and flopped down on his bed. "Well, I'm not going to call you Billy." "You have to, because that's my name from now on," he told her. Amanda shrugged. "Okay, but then you have to give me your animals." "Why?" "Because if you're not going to be called Pinky anymore, then you can't like pink anymore. And if you don't like pink anymore, then you can't have these animals anymore." Pinky thought about what his sister said. Then he gave her every one of his stuffed animals. That night, he woke up several times. He looked around his empty room and wondered where he was. Chapter 5, Hard Choices. The next day was Saturday. Pinky didn't want to get up. He had something very hard to do that morning, maybe the hardest thing he would ever have to do in his whole life. After he heard Amanda go downstairs, he sneaked into her bedroom. "Hi, Pretzel," he whispered. "Did you miss me?" He made Pretzel's head nod yes. "I'm supposed to play with Rex today," he told his friend with the curly tail. "But I have to tell her I can't play with her anymore." "Why?" "Because she's a girl, Pretzel. Don't you understand?" He made Pretzel's head move from side to side. "That's because you're a pig. If you were a boy like me, you'd know that you're not supposed to be friends with girls. I mean, it's okay when you're a little kid, but not when you're 7. Pretzel looked at Pinky with blank button eyes. It was almost noon by the time Pinky was dressed and out of the house. Standing at the end of Rex's sidewalk, he tried to figure out the words he would say to her. None of them seemed right. "Why, hello there, Pinky," he heard Mrs. Morgan call out. She was sitting on her front porch, looking through her mail. "My name is Billy now," he told her. "What's that?" Pinky went to Mrs. Morgan's porch and sat on the top step. "I said my name is Billy," he repeated. "Oh, you don't want to be called Pinky anymore?" Pinky shook his head. "I see," Mrs. Morgan said. "And why is that?" "Because I don't like pink," Pinky told her. "And a boy shouldn't have a pink bike. And Pinky is a dumb name for a boy, and a boy shouldn't play with girls." "My goodness," Mrs. Morgan said. "I had no idea there were so many rules for boys. Imagine If you still did like pink and you wanted to be Rex's friend, how hard it would be to have to pretend to follow all those rules. I don't make the rules, Pinky said. Oh, said Mrs. Morgan. Then who does? Pinky didn't have an answer for that. You know, Billy, when I was young, I decided to follow the rules too. Other people's rules, I mean. It was a very silly thing to do. Why? Pinky asked. Do you remember my telling you that I used to paint pictures? Well, I loved to paint so much. It was all I wanted to do. But some of the other children made fun of me. They stuck their noses in the air and called me the artist. That hurt, because as much as I loved to paint, I hated feeling different. So one day, I put all my brushes and paints away, and I never took them out again. I pretended I liked doing the things the other children liked to do. Soon, they stopped making fun of me. And over time, I forgot all about painting. Then the other day, I was looking at that beautiful pink bush, and it all came back to me. And oh, the sadness that came with it. Mrs. Morgan paused. I know why that bully pushed you down, she went on. It's hard to be different, isn't it? Billy, you have other children make fun of you, but believe me, it's worse not to be yourself. Don't change for other people, Billy. Other people will come and go in your life. Do what's right for the one person who will always be with you, yourself. Pinky sat for a long time thinking. When he saw Rex come out of her house, he stood up. Going to play now, Billy? Mrs. Morgan asked. He nodded, then turned back. I don't think I want to be called Billy, he said. Okay? Mrs. Morgan smiled. Okay, Pinky, now run along. Your friend is waiting. Chapter 6, Nice Pink Sneakers. On Monday morning, as they walked to school, Pinky told Rex how hard it had been to get his stuffed animals back from Amanda. She only let me have them when I said she could keep 2, he said. Not Pretzel, I hope, asked Rex. No way, Pinky replied. Pretzel missed me the most. Even Amanda understood that. I'm glad you changed your mind about being called Billy. Rex could hardly believe it when Pinky had told her that part of the story. Me too, said Pinky. They had almost reached the school door when they heard a familiar voice behind them. Hi, girls. Ignore him, Rex whispered. Pinky turned around. Kevin was smirking at him. Nice pink sneakers, Kevin said. Pinky looked the older boy in the eyes. I like them, he said. Kevin shrugged. Isn't pink every girl's favorite color? Mine's yellow, said Rex. Pinky walked straight up to Kevin and poked him in the chest. It's none of your business what I like, he said, or who I play with. I'm not a sissy and I'm not a girl. And if you think so, it just shows how dumb you are. Kevin's mouth hung open as Pinky poked him a second time and then walked away. Come on, Rex, he said. Let's go. Oh, yeah, Kevin called after them. But Pinky noticed that the bully no longer sounded quite so tough. Chapter 7, A Present. A present for me? Mrs. Morgan asked. surprised to find Pinky and Rex standing at her front door with a beautifully wrapped box? Pinky nodded. But why? It's not my birthday. Open it, Rex urged her neighbor. When Mrs. Morgan saw what lay inside, she broke into a big smile. Paints and brushes, oh my! Now you can paint that flower bush, Pinky said. Mrs. Morgan nodded. That explosion of pink, she said. Is pink still your favorite color? Yes, ma'am, said Pinky. Then the first picture I paint will be for you. Pinky didn't care much about having a picture of flowers, but he didn't say so. All that mattered was that Mrs. Morgan was happy, and for the first time in days, so was he. So remember, always be yourself. Don't try to make other people happy. Make yourself happy.
Hello, here we are reading books again. My name's Amy Raschuti, and I have a story about the jackalope. You'll find out what kind of animal that is. Never seen a jackalope? Not even sure of what it is? Well, you've come to the right place. You'll get the whole story here. You see, the jackalope didn't start out with horns. First, he was a plain old hare, you know, a jackrabbit. The horns came along later with a corny fairy, a god rabbit, and a cranky coyote. The trouble with those horns, it sure makes for a hair-raising tale. With a gut-busting brew of sassy storytelling and outrageous art, the author and illustrators are Janet Stevens and Susan Stevens Cramell, who happen to be sisters. Finally give the jackalope his due. After all, he's long been part of the American legend. Isn't it time to tell the real story? Ever seen a jackalope? Probably not, because they're gone, extinct, like dinosaurs and go-go boots. Ever wonder what happened to them? I know, because two sisters told me. They said it was the absolute truth. So put on your listening ears, zip your lips, and get ready for Jackalope. Gather round, come sit on the ground, and I'll tell you a tale of a hare, and all of it's true, as best I recall, except for some parts here and there. The branches are full on the Jack family tree, with jackrabbits famous and not. There's Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack in the Box. Folks talk about those two a lot. But one branch is empty, and all that is left is a sign that hangs down by a rope, a sign with the name of Jack who is gone, and all it says is Jackalope. Once upon a time, in the land of cactus and cattle, there lived a very unhappy jackrabbit. I hate being ordinary. Nobody notices me. Nobody runs away from me. Nobody is afraid of me. I can be fierce too, can't I? I'll ask Mirror. He always tells the truth. Hey, Mirror, look at this. Jackrabbit froze in his scariest pose. Mirror, mirror, cracked and small, who's the fiercest one of all? He waited for a reply. At the risk of being rude, I think Longhorn's the mean dude. Longhorn, that overgrown piece of beef jerky? I can be scarier than he is. Look at this. Jack twisted his ears sideways, snorted, and pawed at the ground like Longhorn. Mirror, mirror on the tree, who's the scariest? Say it's me. Heed my words, for they are true. Horned Toad's scarier than you. Horned Toad, that stubby little pancake? I can be more ferocious than she is. Look at this. Jack rolled in some mud and shaped his fur into spikes like the horned toad. Mirror, mirror hanging there, say that I'm one scary hare. Jack, you only make me smile. Give it up. It's not your style. Jackrabbit grabbed the mirror off the tree. Mirror, mirror, piece of glass. Here you go. In the grass. He tossed Mirror on the ground and walked off. Jack saw a lone star in the evening sky. Starlight, star bright. first star I see tonight. Listen up, hear my plea. Make me anything but me. And while you're at it, star, I'd like some fangs and some claws and maybe a stinger and a big sharp beak and pointy horns, real ones. He curled up, closed his eyes, and tried to sleep. Jack wasn't happy just being himself. He had to be scary and feared. He wished and he hoped and he tossed and he turned. At dawn, a strange creature appeared. Someone poked Jack in the ribs. Having a bad hair day? Who are you? I'm your fairy god rabbit. You wished on a star, and that's where I come in. You see this star on my wand? Star wishes are the only ones I can grant. I don't do wishbones, wishing wells, birthday candles, and all that other stuff. Now, let us see. You wish for fangs, claws, a stinger, a beak, and horns. Oh, sorry, there's a one-wish limit. Jack Rabbit shook his head. I want them all. I can't choose. I know what I'd wish for. Some normal clothes. Fairy Godmother, God Rabbit, rolled her eyes. Don't look at me. I look like a tossed salad dressing up, and this getup is for the birds. I wish. Is this your wish or mine? Jack interrupted. Okay. I see you don't care at all about me. So choose. Jack paused. I want horns. Horns? Fairy God Rabbit moaned. Why did it have to be horns? I've turned pumpkins into carriages, frogs into princes, rags into gowns, but I've never done horns. I'll have to look this up. Luckily, I brought my new, unabridged, fully illustrated, first time in paperback, step-by-step copy of Wishes for Wabbits. Fairy God Rabbit flipped through the pages. Chapter 8. Wishes beginning with H. Hair, H-A-I-R, longer or shorter? No. High heels, glass, ruby? No. Oh, here it is. Horns, trumpets, trombones. Now that will look cute on your head. I mean, these horns. Oh, antlers. Ready, Jack? She waved her wand. Wait, it says there's one condition. Never lie or else. Just hurry up, snapped Jack. Magic dust, do your stuff. Make this hair mean and tough. Pointy horns are his hope. Make them like an antelope. When the magic dust had settled, there stood Jack Rabbit with horns like an antelope. You might just call him a jackalope. He pranced, he strutted, he puffed out his chest. His horns were a sight to behold. At last he was scary, at last he was fierce. But Jackalope had to be told. Mirror, mirror on the ground, who's the scariest one around? There was no reply. Who needs that silly old mirror anyway? I know I'm the scariest one of all. Jackalope left Mirror in the grass and headed down the path to find Hummingbird. Hey, Hummingbird, look at me. Jackalope froze in his scariest pose. Jack, where'd you get those horns? They're mine, and I've always had them, Jackalope boasted. Jumpin' jackrabbits, those horns grew right before my very own eyes. As they got bigger, Hummingbird zoomed away and almost flew smack dab into Squirrel. Hey, Squirrel, look at me. Jackalope froze in his scariest pose. Jack, where'd you get those horns? They're mine, and I've always had them, Jackalope boasted. Leaping lizards, those horns are growing. I'm out of here. Squirrel hightailed it down the path. Jackalope teetered from the weight on his head. Being scary is hard work, he said to himself. But Jackalope was not alone. 2 eyes were watching and 2 ears were listening, and 1 mouth was watering too. Coyote was tired of acorn and berries. He wanted some jackrabbit stew. Well, look at you, said Coyote. Jackalope turned. Are those horns I see? Coyote stepped closer. How extraordinary. I really can't see them from so far away. I need a better look. He stepped even closer. Well, I'll be. Can I touch them? He reached out and jumped at Jackalope. The chasing began, and 2 of them ran up and down, in and out, all around, as Jackalope dived for his old hiding place. His huge horns got stuck in the ground. Help! Jackalope struggled. Well, isn't this handy? Coyote snickered. Dinner waiting to be cooked. A jackrabbit kebab. I'll just build a fire right under him. He's not going anywhere. And Coyote wandered off to look for firewood. I'm stuck. Why did I wish for these horns? Jackalope cried. Fairy God Rabbit, come back. Okay, you don't have to yell. I'm right here. My, look at those horns. Just how many lies have you told? Lies? I haven't told any lies, Jack Rabbit replied. Okay, maybe a few. Now, how do you get rid of these horns? Beats me, said Fairy God Rabbit. You get one wish. You wanted horns, you got horns. But surely you can undo a wish. Hurry, look it up, Jackalope pleaded. Coyote's coming back and he's going to roast me like a hot dog, gobble me up whole, and pick his teeth with my horns. Now, that's a problem, said Fairy God Rabbit, opening her manual. Here it is, Chapter 27, Undoing Wishes. Number 1, you can't. Number 2, if you think you can, see number 1. Oh dear, tough luck. Maybe I can move the horns, transplant them. I'll give it a try. Magic dust, rescue hair, put these horns over. There is a nice piece of kindling for my fire. And Coyote grabbed the wand from Fairy God Rabbit and magic dust sprinkled all over her. The horns disappeared from Jackalope's head. He hopped up and dashed out of sight. But where do you think those horns reappeared? On Fairy God Rabbit? That's right. Jack kept running. He bolted up a hill and jumped up a hollow tree. Coyote shrugged. Hair today, gone tomorrow. He turned and eyed Fairy God Rabbit. Dinner ran off, but here's dessert. She glared. You butternut, come any closer or I'll squash you. Yeah, right, laughed Coyote. I'm going to toast you like a marshmallow. And he grabbed her by the horn, stuck her in the ground, and went to find more wood. Someone help me, screamed Fairy God Rabbit. Prince Charming, Knight in Shining Armor, ex-Jackalope, I know you're out there. I could use your help, please. Way down deep in that dark, hollow tree, Jack heard her cries of distress. Should he go save Fairy God Rabbit now, or should he stay put? What a mess. Jack thought fast. I have to go back. And he struggled out of the tree. His fur was covered with sticky sap. She helped me. Now she needs help. Hold on, Fairy God Rabbit. I'm coming to the rescue. He dashed downhill. Then he tripped and rolled and bounced and rolled some more. Everything in his path, leaves, twigs, weeds, dirt, cactus. The farther Jack rolled, the bigger he got. Meanwhile, Coyote lit a fire under Fairy God Rabbit. Rustle, rustle. What's that? Coyote wondered. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Who's there? He looked around. Rustle, rustle. Hey, Coyote, look at me. Coyote turned and gasped, then burst out laughing. A giant bush rabbit. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. He laughed so hard, he hee-hawed like a donkey and snorted like a pig. His laugh became a howl, and he howled so hard, he tumbled right downhill into the stream. Coyote was still howling as he floated away. Jack pulled Fairy God Rabbit out of the ground and stamped out the fire. Oh, Jack, I knew you'd turnip. How brave. You really are my knight in shining stuff. Fairy God Rabbit picked up a charred stick. My wand, it burned to a crisp. No more magic dust, no more wishes, and I'm stuck with these horns forever? You could decorate them with ornaments, said Jack. Wait a minute. Somewhere in this mess there might be some magic dust left on me. On me too, cried Fairy God Rabbit. They shook and they twisted and turned and danced. Stuff flew everywhere. Leaves, twigs, weeds, dirt, cactus, vegetables, magic dust. Quick, make a wish, said Jack. Fairy God Rabbit took a deep breath. Magic dust, one last time. Oh, my dear, this won't rhyme. Just get these horns off me now. The horns vanished. That's it. My Fairy God Rabbit days are over. Now I'm just an ordinary hare, so it's back to my ordinary name, Jill. She turned and walked away. Wait, cried Jack. Stay. We can be ordinary together, like two peas in a pod. Jill paused. Didn't you want to be scary and fierce? No way, it's hazardous to my health, said Jack. Ordinary's safer, and I'm happy that way. And if you stayed here, I'd be happier, even with your corny vegetable talk. Oh, how can I believe you? Asked Jill. Remember when the horns would grow? Let's ask Mirror, said Jack. He always tells the truth. Mirror, mirror, friend so small, who's the happiest one of all? No reply. Hello, Mirror, are you there? I don't just reflect. I need your respect. Jack Rabbit picked up the mirror and polished it. Mirror sparkled. Who's the happiest? Now it's 3, Jack and Jill and Mirror. That's me. Hold on, it's not over yet. There's more. 2 eyes were watching, and 2 ears were listening, and 1 mouth was watering too. Coyote had worked up a huge appetite, and not just for Jack Rabbit's stew. So he gobbled up Jack and he gobbled up Jill, and his belly was starting to hurt. He was gobbling up Squirrel and Hummingbird too, and the mirror was his dessert. The end. Bah, just kidding. You didn't believe that, did you? Don't worry. Here's what really happened. Jackalope's gone, but his legend lives on as I tell of his tale here and there. And don't you all mope for that old Jackalope, for he's happy just being a hare. Mirror and Jack and their new buddy Jill were a trio forever, they say. And if it's real quiet, I know you can hear that coyote still howling today. So when you're out gazing at night in the sky and you happen to see the first star, why, don't you be wishing for something you're not. It's better to be who you are. The end. Really? Well, that about wraps it up. Hey, speaking of being something you're not, listen to this. Here's some information for you, everybody. Did you know that a jackrabbit isn't a rabbit? It's a hare. The babies aren't bunnies. They're called leverets, and they're born fully furred, eyes wide open, ready to hop. Jackrabbits outrun their natural enemies, including coyotes, by using their strong hind legs. They need that plain fur for camouflage. Jackrabbits like to eat herbs and shrubs. The antelope of North America isn't an antelope. It's a pronghorn. It can run faster than most other animals in the world, but it never jumps over a fence. Get this, its horns are unique. They're not antlers, but they branch, shed, and grow back like antlers. Nearly half the pronghorn's diet is cactus. Yuck. And remember that horned toad? It's not a toad, it's a lizard. It's very gentle, but it scares off its predators by doing some scary looking things like puffing up its body to make it look bigger and squirting blood from its eyes. Whoa! It eats live ants by lassoing them with long, sticky tongues. Those 2 silly sisters who wrote and illustrated this book told me they don't eat shrubs or cactus or ants. They like to graze at all-you-can buffets. And that is the story of the jackalope. Thank you.